Phelps, co-author of the Turning to God's Word Bible Study, and the beginning, the book of Genesis. Today we'll be talking about Lesson 10, God's Covenant with Abraham, which covers chapters 17 and 18 of the book of Genesis. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty, walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come forth from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your descendants after you, through their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Lots happens here. First, God sets a condition for all the things that are about to happen. Walk before me and be blameless. So, Abram has his own part to play in all of this. But, assuming that, and God seems more than willing to assume that, other things are going to happen. So, God renames Abram to Abraham. When we see a renaming in the Bible, it almost always marks a significant event. And someone's name is seen as their identity, so a change in name is also a change in identity. So here, God describes this new identity as being father of a multitude. So we're progressing heavily and substantially in God's relationship with now Abraham, and continues to emphasize that Abraham will have many, many children. But he adds in another part as well here, which we haven't seen before, which is that he is going to be a God to Abraham and the people who come, which is a big deal. So not just are you going to have all these people, but I will be there in later iterations of the same type of promises. I will be your God and you will be my people. So this is forming the beginnings of that relationship between God and the people. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He that is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. Both he that is born in your house and he that is bought with your money shall be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So, as God is agreeing to enter into covenant with these people, to be their God and to have them be his people, he establishes also a sign for the people, at least the men among the people, that they are people of God, which is he institutes the sign of circumcision to be done on the 8th day and to be caught up here by anybody who has not yet been circumcised. And that will not only those born, but also anyone who is bought in as a slave of the people. So circumcision is going to be a thing, and that will be a mark indicating that you are someone who belongs to the people of God. Which definitely stands out a little bit because it's probably not a thing anybody would start doing by accident. It is a clear sign of, I am willing to commit to this thing, to God. And it's also a precursor of our sacrament of baptism, which has spiritual marks but not physical, which is another form of initiation, the form of initiation into the Christian people of God, in union with Jesus Christ. So baptism or circumcision is also a foreshadowing and a type of baptism. And God said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall come from her." Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to himself, "Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child?" And Abraham said to God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live in your sight." God said, "No, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him and make him fruitful and multiply him exceedingly. He shall be the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this season next year." So, in establishing his people, God has chosen the mother of the nation that he is giving rise to as Sarah. It's important to note that God chose not only Abraham, but he chose Sarah as well to be the ones to bring about this nation and this work that he is doing. And Abraham now, hears what God is saying, and his response is laughter, which is worth keeping in mind just a little bit later when Sarah hears about it as well. And God's response to Abraham's laughter is, "No, really, that's going to happen." And Abraham, as trusting as he is, basically says, "It'll be enough. I have Ishmael, my son that you gave me. That'll be fine. You can just do all this through him. We really, you don't need to do this other thing. It's fine. I have a son." And God is insistent that, no, it's going to be from Sarah. She's the one I want. Sure, I'll remember Ishmael. He'll be a great nation too. That's fine. But no, I want the son that you're going to have, that you'll name Isaac, from Sarah. And he's the one that I want to make my covenant with. God is, at this point, being very specific. And Abraham is, I think, still being rightly a little skeptical, but is willing to go along. And also here, Sarai is renamed to Sarah. So now we have Abraham and Sarah, the patriarch and matriarch of the people of God. All the people of God will come from these two people. So really big deal. And although it's not that common for men to be renamed in the Bible, it is incredibly uncommon for women to be renamed. So this is a big deal that Sarai becomes Sarah as well. And it shows the incredible primacy of her place in the view of God, that she also is being renamed here. And God is so insistent that no, she needs to be the mother of the child that I'm going to make the covenant with, not Hagar. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael his son and all the slaves born in his house, and bought with his money every male among the men of Abraham's house. And he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. So Abraham doesn't waste any time. God says, this is what it takes to be my people. And Abraham says, yeah, let's do this. No delay at all. And he's somehow able to gather and to convince everyone in his household to do likewise. And so Abraham and all of the males in his household are circumcised on the very same day that God tells them of the sign. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men stood in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth, and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, Do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and dress yourselves under the tree, while I fetch a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So here Abraham sees some strangers passing by and insists on offering hospitality. In this culture, hospitality was a very big deal, and it would have been not only insulting of Abraham not to do that, but he would have been deficient in his duties as well as a person. It was a hugely big deal in that culture to offer hospitality to people. So Abraham sees people come passing by, and he goes out and he insists on offering hospitality. So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So Abraham prepares quite a nice meal for these people who are passing by, and serves them the whole time that they are with him. Which is especially probably a culture shock to us, that someone that rich and powerful would insist on acting as a servant toward others, when in our culture it tends to be the other way around. If I'm rich and powerful, I want everyone else to act as a servant to me. Again, big cultural difference, but Abraham is also going above and beyond in the name of hospitality. He could have offered whatever food he had around, and that's still hospitable. He insisted on doing the very best that he could, which is the mark of Abraham's character. They said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" And he said, "She is in the tent." The Lord said, "I will surely return to you in the spring, and Sarah your wife shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you in the spring, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "No, but you did laugh." So, Sarah and Abraham have basically the same initial reaction to hearing that Sarah is going to bear him a child. They laugh. But Abraham is fully willing to own up to his laughing and basically says, "No, that's ridiculous. I'm okay with Ishmael." Whereas Sarah doesn't want to be conspicuous in that and tries to deny it a little bit. But, I mean, it's pretty funny. And thoroughly preposterous, the idea that a 99-year-old woman should bear a son who has been infertile for her whole lifetime. It's a preposterous thing. It's easy for us to lose sight of how much so, because we hear the story and we get used to the story and think, "Oh yeah, of course, that happened." But without the benefit of many thousands of years of repeating this story, it is a thing that seems truly preposterous that could happen. And you can see why they would think it's funny. And so they both laughed. Then the men set out from there, and they looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, seeing that Abraham shall become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by him? No, for I have chosen him, that he may charge his children and household after him to keep the way of the Lord, by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him." Then the Lord said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry which has come to me. And if not, I will know." So, the Lord decides to clue Abraham into something that he's going to do in light of the covenant he's made with Abraham and the fact that Abraham is becoming one of his people, and Abraham has a responsibility to perpetuate and to teach other people how to behave toward the Lord. The Lord wants to kind of clue him in a little bit more, give him a little bit more knowledge of things that are going to happen, and let him see how the Lord works a little more. So he clues Abraham in that he's going down to Gomorrah and Sodom to see what's up, because he's heard that the people are behaving badly, and he wants to investigate it. So the men turned from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham still stood before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, "Will you indeed destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" And the Lord said, "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake." So, when Abraham hears what's going on, remember, Lot is living in the area, but I'm not sure that is even factoring into Abraham's concern. He seems to have genuine concern. Would this God that I've been serving kill righteous people for the sake of destroying the wicked? That doesn't seem like the God I know. And if you think about, Noah was not that long ago in relationship to Abraham, in which God found a way to kill all the bad people and was able to save the good people at the same time. So it makes sense that Abraham would be a little perplexed by this thing and wonder if that's really how God behaves. So he asks and says, "Well, wait, what if there are 50 people who are righteous? Then are you going to just kill them too?" And God says, "No, I wouldn't do that." So here we are establishing kind of who God really is and who Abraham is pretty strongly as well. Abraham answered, "Behold, I have taken upon myself to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." This is actually a pretty great argument on Abraham's part. Once he establishes that 50 are good enough to save the city, then he does not say 40, he goes to 45, but he argues from the point of view of, well, if you'll do it for 50, if there are just 5 fewer, for just the lack of 5 people, is that really going to cause you to destroy the whole thing? So it's not a bad argument on his part, and God again says, "Nope, not if there are 45. Again he spoke to him and said, "Suppose 40 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 40 I will not do it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there." He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." He said, "Behold, I have taken upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 20 I will not destroy it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again but this once. Suppose 10 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 10 I will not destroy it." And the Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. So, then Abraham talks the Lord down in increments of 10 to 10 people only. If there are 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, God will not destroy it. God agrees to that. Abraham stops there, and God moves on to inquire in the town. It's interesting when Abraham has been arguing down by 10 all this time that he would stop at 10 and leave it there. Especially when his initial argument was, would you destroy the righteous with the unrighteous? Because there still could be some righteous people in the city. And we see ultimately this argument taken to its logical conclusion, and what God's real answer is with Jesus Christ, who ends up being the one righteous person for the sake of whom God saves all of humanity. So the ultimate answer, and Christianity ends up posing this question, and it exists because of the answer to it, is would you spare people on behalf of one and only one righteous person? And God's answer is yes, yes I would. And so Jesus Christ comes and is that one righteous person on behalf of whom all of humanity is spared. But Abraham doesn't venture to go quite that far just yet. That is for later. Abraham leaves it at 10, and God is going down to check into the situation. This has been an overview of Lesson 10 of the Turning to God's Word Bible Study, in the beginning, the book of Genesis. For more information, consult our written study or visit us online at turningtogodsword.com.